New York City decided to try to ban a word. They tried to make a certain word illegal. And that word was the N-word. The N-word with the hard R. I don't like to say it. Technically, I'm allowed to say it. But why say it? It's offensive to a lot of my beautiful black listeners, so I'm not going to. But New York City tried to make the N-word illegal, essentially. And a lot of people wanted it to be made illegal. Obviously, it violates America's First Amendment of free speech. But I actually said I do not want it to be illegal. I would hate for the N-word to be illegal. Now, that's not just so I can laugh and joke with my friends and my friends can use it in our stupid little friendship group. The reason I don't want the N-word to be illegal anywhere in the world is because the state of the world 12 years ago was relatively sane. The left hadn't gone too far left. Social justice warriors didn't have their swords out yet. So making the N-word illegal, what's the harm? I'll tell you what the harm would have been. The harm would have been, not that you can't say the N-word, but you've officially given the government the ability to ban words and make words illegal and police your speech and send you to jail for the words that come out of your mouth. Now, if you want to come up to me and call my dad an N-word to my face, I'll deal with you. What I won't do is call the police, hey, he said an illegal word, I think he should be arrested. I think you're fully within your rights to say that word, and if you want to go up to my group of friends, a lot of them are black, and say the N-word, if you're brave enough, feel free. You should be allowed to do that. Because once you give the government the ability to choose which words are legal and which words are not legal, think about how far the world has changed in these 12 years. Luckily, that got thrown out. The N-word isn't illegal anywhere in the United States, but let's pretend they still had this power. Okay, 12 years ago, we made the N-word illegal. We still have the power. New York is insane. It's run by insane leftist liberals. Just look what they're doing to Trump in New York. He built the skyline. They're trying to fine him $500 million for nothing. Now, if they had the power now that was given to them 12 years ago to make words illegal, what words would they make illegal? Biological male? Biological female? Cisgender? Pedophile? That's a sexual orientation. You're not allowed to say that. That's too mean. You see where I'm going with this? No word should ever be made illegal. And what Scotland has done is really, really passed, I think, perhaps the worst piece of British legislation in my lifetime. Because what they've done is they've said, if speech is hateful, it's illegal. Well, what does hateful mean? Who defines what hateful means? The police? The left-wing liberal police who dance around in gay pride flags all day? So when J.K. Rowling says men are women, men are men and women are women, is that hateful? Can she now be arrested? I believe she lives in Scotland. J.K. Rowling's actually using my line. Take me to jail. That's my line. J.K., you're allowed to have it. I know you and my brother had some arguments about depression and mental health about 5 or 6 years ago, but what you're doing in terms of standing up to this horrible attack on free speech, I've got to admire you for it, and you are willing to go to jail to state biological facts. So what they're doing in Scotland is extremely dangerous, because if you think of how crazy the world's got in the last 12 years, what happens in 12 more? God knows. I identify as a child as calling me an adult hateful. I identify as a dog as calling me a human hateful. Is stating biological facts going to become hateful? Are people going to end up in jail for saying that men are men and women are women? I don't know. But I'm glad prominent people like J.K. Rowling are leading the charge against this, and that's why I thought I need to speak out against it as well. Because it is fundamentally wrong and inherently evil to be policing anybody's speech in any way. Obviously, threats, incitement to violence, I'm going to kill you, we should murder these type of people. Obviously, I understand why those threats, not the speech itself, can be crimes, because what you're doing is, you know, you're opening the door to actual physical violence on somebody. But it is not hateful to state biological fact. And credit to JK for standing up to that. Boycott Starbucks. Boycott McDonald's. Boycott Coca-Cola. Are you making a difference? Well, my very good friend asked me about this today. I was asked if I believe that the boycotts against companies that allegedly pay taxes to the Israeli state are going to do anything to halt the genocide that they're committing. And I said no. I said buy your coffee at Starbucks, drink your Coca-Cola, it doesn't make a difference. And I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to explain what should be done. Free speech is super important, as I was just covering in my previous point. And what's happened is, now that free speech has been restored to the people, people who want to commit acts of evil, if they have control of the media, and no, I'm not talking about a religious group, I'm talking about a nation, by the way. People who want to, people who control the media can commit horrible acts of violence and nobody ever checks them for it because they're in charge of, you know, the New York Times and all the newspapers, and they can dictate events as they like. However, free speech on platforms like Rumble, platforms like X, have opened the door to people actually analyzing what's happening in the Middle East and what's being done in the Middle East. Now, this is the cure to the problem, because America is never going to abandon Israel. It's never going to turn its back on Israel. They're very close allies, and I believe they always will be. However, when people like the future president, the great Donald Trump, has now seen with his own eyes what's going on over there and said, look, Israel, you've taken it too far. When very, very prominent podcasters, people like, you know, Candace Owens, Joe Rogan, people like Alex Jones, people who otherwise, you know, do like Israel, don't necessarily dislike the country, are now calling out this genocide for what it is. It's an important cultural shift, and free speech is the only way to fight it. You show the world what's happening and let people make up their own mind, because no decent person, no matter if you're Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, no decent person is in favor of what is happening in Gaza. And if you are, then take a look in the mirror. You're not a decent person. So do I think the boycotts work? No. And I'm going to explain why boycotting is completely pointless. Talk about the issue. Share the horrible videos, sadly, that people tag you in. Talk to people on the ground. Donate money to help the children, like I do, and to help the people struggling over there to rebuild. But by all means, don't think that not buying Coca-Cola and not buying Starbucks is going to help at all. And I'm going to explain why. Let's pretend life is that simple. Obviously, Coca-Cola own the other drinks you're going to drink. I'm not going to get into that. Obviously, BlackRock own the shares in the coffee franchise that you go to, and if you don't go there, anywhere else you go, the smoothie shop is owned by the same people. Let's pretend it's actually simple. Let's pretend Coca-Cola is one drink, and it's a company that pays $1 million a day in taxes to the Israeli government. Let's pretend Starbucks is a coffee shop that's registered in Israel as a company, and it pays $1 million every single day to the Israeli government. Let's pretend it's black and white simple, okay? Well, if you boycott them and their revenues fall in half, then they only donate $500,000 a day to the Israeli government, which funds, obviously, the Israeli war effort. I would say the Israeli genocide myself. And if things were that simple, what kind of difference would it make? So you are the Israeli army. You get $1 million a day, $2 million a day, $1 million from Coca-Cola, $1 million from Starbucks, and you're waging your genocidal war. The money's cut in half because of the boycotts. Okay, what do you do next? Well, who funds these campaigns? Who funds the military in Israel? The American taxpayer. But not just the American taxpayer, the American Federal Reserve. And where do they get money from? They make it up. They conjure it into existence. The money it needs to carry out its genocide is always going to be there, because they just type the numbers into a screen and they become real. The money becomes real immediately if you understand how fractional reserve banking works in the Federal Reserve. If you get how it works, all the money they need is already there in cyberspace, ready to be typed into existence to pay for its bombs and its weapons and its napalm and its bullets and its soldiers. So boycotting Starbucks ain't going to do a goddamn thing. However, The shift in public consciousness that has happened, even people like Piers Morgan are now calling out Israel and what they're doing. And him and my brother had a mighty clash about this on day one. Well, the cultural shift is what stops Americans from saying, I'm going to give money to this state. I'm going to fund this further. So buy your coffee, buy your burgers, buy your Coca-Cola, because that's not what's going to hurt them. Talking about the problem is what's going to hurt them. Just as I would speak openly against any genocide anywhere in the world, against any person. I'd speak openly against genocide being committed against Israelis just as much as I would Palestinians. I'm an anti-genocide person. And that's my political standpoint. People think I'm crazy? Well, I'm not. Speaking of Donald Trump, I got a few questions about him and his family on X. And the questions were along the lines of, do I think that there is future political leadership built into the Trump family? And this all came after a post I made. Barron Trump's 18th birthday was a week and a half ago. Happy birthday, young man. And what happened was, some left-wing insane journalist made some very strange comment saying, Barron Trump's now 18, he's fair game. I don't know what he meant by that. And I don't think I want to know what he meant by that. However, what I would say is, yes, he is fair game. He's fair game, as in he's 18 years old. So it's fair game to put him in his father's administration, give him a job in politics, let him learn, let him grow, and position him for a future presidential run in 30 years' time. Yes, he's fair game in that way. And good. And I guess the question is, do I believe there is potential president material within the Trump family? Can they become a great political dynasty like the Kennedys were, for example? And my answer to that is an overwhelming yes. When Donald Trump wins, and I hope he does, this will be his last term as president. Obviously, you can only run 2 terms, and Donald Trump deserves to retire. He's getting old. He deserves to retire and enjoy the rest of his life in peace. So who do you hand over the reins to then? A few people know this, but not everybody does. I met Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., about 6 years ago, before anyone really knew who I was. My brother and I were just medium-sized Twitter accounts, but a conversation was had where it was, if you're ever in New York, let me know. And we sat in Trump Tower and spoke about the state of the world with him for about an hour or two. Now, I changed my mind completely on one thing back then. I used to believe that the children of billionaires and the children of multimillionaires wouldn't be, what's the word, in touch with the common man, wouldn't understand the problems of the real world, wouldn't be as hardworking or as ambitious as a self-made person like their fathers or their grandfathers were. And I was completely wrong. I met Donald Trump Jr., and he was one of the most impressive people I have ever met. He'd been up since 6 o'clock that morning working already. We're sitting in his office. He knew everything about every topic. Topics that wouldn't even necessarily affect a man of his net worth. At the time, I believe his father was the sitting president, and he was running Trump Enterprises. He had the time to sit and talk to myself and my brother, and I thought, wow, what an incredibly sharp, incredibly smart man this is. So, obviously, Barron Trump, any political dreams he has are in the far future, probably. He's very young. He has a lot to learn and a lot to do. But from what I know of Don Jr., if his brothers are anything like him, yeah, we have future presidents in the Trump family already. And I think that's what we need, because the Trump family can't be bought with money. And that's one of the reasons why they hate Donald, the big Donald, so much. I believe what he's doing in terms of his political goals, how great the country became during his 4 years in presidency, it's been ruined now. I think that he can really make America great again, but he needs someone to tag in when this is all over. And I wish the Trump family the best of luck. There definitely is leadership in the Trump family. Future American presidents, no doubt. And I really hope so. I would really I'd be very comfortable and very happy to see these people in charge of the country over many terms, through many different men, throughout my lifetime. Okay, I'm going to scroll through the super chats now as I smoke, because I have many. Can you stop saying rest in peace, Shaggy? Please. I don't know why you're paying money to type rest in peace, Shaggy to me. Yes. Yes? Rory bought a goat. Yes, he bought the goat to my house. Yes, I killed and ate the goat. I don't know what he expected me to do. I don't really know what he thought was going to happen. Of course I was going to kill his goat. Stop typing rest in peace, Shaggy. I don't care about his goat. I'm not even calling it by its name. I care 0%. Hi, Tristen. Looks like you love freedom of speech. Blah, blah, blah. This particular chain is important because of freedom of speech, etc., etc. Ah, somebody, Heidi, wants me to shill their crypto. Interesting. Well, I'm not going to, and I'm not going to say the name of that particular chain online. Because why would I? Do I own some of the coins? I own lots of different coins. But the problem with me is, I don't want any fan of mine to take what I say as financial advice. And the cryptos that you're all sending to me, hoping that I pump, I see as potential failures. They could be potential failures. Do I have some? Sure, I've got some. That doesn't matter. What I would say is, when I talk about crypto, I'm very careful. I like certain things that perhaps I'm not big enough to affect. I like Bitcoin. But if I say I like Bitcoin, I can't spike the Bitcoin price. Ethereum, again, very interesting. Venom Network, very, very interesting. But that's a whole chain, you see. That's an entire chain, not some individual coin that anyone can pump and dump. So I'm a big believer in quite a few projects, but if you send me super chats with particular names in it, I'm not going to read them out loud. Because I don't believe in them that much, and I don't like them that much. Where was I? There are some things we should never stop talking about. I'm getting a lot of questions about him, so I'm very going to quickly say Julian Assange should not be in prison. He's committed no crime. When I joked about the British government trying to use Romania and their preventative detention laws to throw me in jail indefinitely until there's a trial or there isn't a trial, I thought that was a very cruel trick by the English because they don't have preventative detention. They don't just lock people up for no reason. And they're trying to get the Romanians to do it with some of their own citizens, which I thought was very sad. The UK certainly has betrayed me. What I meant was, England doesn't throw people in jail for no reason and leave them to rot without trial, unless your name is Julian Assange. That's what I meant. And yes, I follow his wife. I follow the campaign to free him. I think it's important that people don't forget his name. I remember when he was first arrested. I'm a lot older than some of you. But essentially he was exposing war crimes committed by the United States military. Not that the United States military is all bad or that it's full of bad people, but there were crimes being committed. He, I guess, released a lot of documents that people didn't want the average American who pays for these things to happen to actually see and to actually read. And he was accused of rape by some anonymous woman or touching her inappropriately and put in jail. And then he was hiding in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for years, and now he's in jail still. Who's that girl? Who did he touch? No one knows. You know, what's the evidence? No one knows. America wanted to extradite him for treason, even though he's not an American citizen. The Australians really should do something about it and take their boy home. I believe he's Australian, isn't he? Australian or South African? Whatever country he's from, take the bloody guy home and fucking let him go. But yeah, don't stop talking about Julian Assange. Jesus, how much trouble do I want to get in? Hi, Tristen. I know your thoughts towards black actors playing James Bond. Have you seen the new Romeo and Juliet couple? I have one word. And that word, the word that I'm going to hide behind, so you don't call me names like racist or misogynistic, is authenticity. Authenticity is nice. I've read the Bond books. Yes, he should be white because it's authentic to the book and the creator who wrote the book. I feel like if you were to make a black Harry Potter, that's fine as long as J.K. Rowling does it. It's her character, it's her book. She's allowed to make a black Harry Potter. Ian Fleming is dead, however, so Bond should be white and nobody should be messing with the character he created. Now, Shakespeare is super dead. How much trouble do I want to get in? Obviously, Romeo and Juliet should be white. Both of them. Obviously. Shakespeare did not write the play about a black girl and a white guy. I know there are reimaginings of Romeo and Juliet, and Shakespeare's work is now off copyright, so you can do whatever you want with it. But let's just say Romeo and Juliet is about a handsome young man and a beautiful young woman. This woman not only does not match the description of Juliet racially, she doesn't match the description of Juliet at all. And I feel like it's a virtue signal to promote the play, because I wouldn't know about this if it wasn't done in this way. So I feel like it's a way of getting people talking. And if I were a black actor, I would feel very upset being cast in a role for a character which I do not fit the description of, just so it goes viral. And people who like authenticity will attack it, and people who are lunatics, who are happy to butcher everyone's work, will push it. I'd feel very used if I were a black actor or actress, and they put me in this role, just so it becomes some big viral hit that people get curious about and want to see. And I feel like that's been done. With Anne Boleyn, with The Little Mermaid, I feel like that's why it's done. And that's a very cheap way to use black actors. And I don't like it. So no, I think they should replace the Juliet with a white actress. But of course they won't, because now everyone will go insane. Can't do that now. Very much so. Hi, Tristen. I'm a Romanian. What do you think about the future of immigration for Europe in regards to Romania? I feel I can speak about countries as a bloc. Poland, Romania, Hungary. Let's take those three, for example. I feel the EU is going to have a very tricky time selling immigration to us in the Balkans and in Eastern Europe. And I'll tell you why. I don't believe that the over use of immigration and the excessive flooding of countries like Germany and England and France can happen here. Because I feel that people won't stand for it. A lot of these people are bringing fire. A lot of these people are bringing diseases and violence. Whatever religion they are and whatever country they're from, many of them, most of them, and from the sub-Saharan African countries are uneducated. They don't go to school. They don't know how to properly behave and interact with members of the opposite sex. And I feel like countries like Sweden, England, Germany, France have really shot themselves in the foot by trying immigration again. I think immigration worked when people from the former British Empire were coming. The Indians, the Jamaicans, they aspired to British values. They wanted to be British. Their teachers were British. They spoke the language. They had a special place in their heart for the royal family, for London, which was their capital when they were growing up. And they showed up and everything was fine. They became lawyers. They became doctors. They became shopkeepers. They became businessmen. No, the people who are coming across in rubber dinghies now are not doctors. They're not scholars. They're not rocket scientists. They're not going to be the backbone of Britain. These men coming across in rubber dinghies are very dangerous. And how do I feel it's going to affect Romania? So, I, as a man who's lived in Eastern Europe for the last 10 years, have seen the changes. I've seen it. Seeing a black person or a brown person of any type in Romania 8 years ago was exceptionally rare, and now it's becoming relatively commonplace. You know, in France, the Frenchmen have lost their backbone ever since 1815. If anyone knows that date, type it in the chat. Since 1815, a lot of Frenchmen have lost their spine and lost their backbone. Germans lost their backbone in 1945. And I think what's happened in countries like France is it was very easy to psyop the people. It was very easy to say to the white Frenchman who is French, don't worry, this guy from the Ivory Coast Republic, he's French too. Part of our empire, speaks the French language, likes France, he's French too. I'm not even saying that he's wrong. He's not ethnically and racially a Frenchman, but he comes from a French society and a French culture, and he was ruled by France. It's the same in England. We take people like even friends of mine like Marcel, whose grandparents came to England from Jamaica. They came from the British Empire of Jamaica. So Marcel may be a black man, and he may not be ethnically British or ethnically white English. However, he is a British person, and British people, like myself, and I'm mixed race too, I'm half black myself, and we're all accepted as British people because of the way England was set up and the way France was set up in this big empirical system with its empire and its various colonies and our language being spread everywhere. It's going to be a very difficult sell to the Hungarians. It's going to be very difficult to tell Hungarians that people from Syria, you see where I'm going? There's never been Hungary. Arguably, there are parts of the world in Slovakia and Romania that the Hungarians, where ethnic Hungarians live that aren't Hungary. But Syria isn't one of them. Sierra Leone isn't one of them. Somalia isn't one of them. And it's going to be very, very difficult to convince the Hungarian man that these Somali men, who speak English at best, certainly not Hungarian, are the new Hungarians. And it's going to be very, very tricky to convince the Romanians that these people from the Democratic Republic of the Congo are the new Romanians. They're just as Romanian as you. Romania's never been set up as an empire. It's never had foreign colonies. It's never had any interest or doings in Africa. Obviously, people say white people are evil. They went to Africa, did X, Y, and Z. The Hungarians, the Romanians, the Slovaks, the Poles did precisely none of this ever. And I feel like it's going to be a very difficult sell to convince the Polish that the blacks and brown people who are ethnically different from them, from other parts of the world who don't know their language, are the new Poles. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. And I also believe that the moment something bad happens, I don't feel these nations are going to stand for it. If something like a rape gang was uncovered, if something like a murder was committed, or rape was committed, or a few people who weren't of the Polish or Romanian or Hungarian ethnicity ran wild on New Year's Eve like they did in Germany and inappropriately groped and touched a bunch of women in their private parts, I believe there would be serious backlash. I mean serious violent backlash. And I don't necessarily believe that the authorities will care that much. They may well look the other way. It's going to be a very tricky situation. My advice is very simple. Immigration can work. as long as the people coming to the country have a healthy respect for the country. So what I would say is, if you are a migrant moving to any country, Romania, Hungary, Poland, any of these countries in particular, move there with good intentions. Don't break any laws. Don't commit crimes and be a good person. That's what I did. I found myself in jail anyway. But I think all migrants should respect the country that they move to 100%, just as I respect the countries that I'm against 100%. So we're going to find out very soon what I think of immigration in Romania. I just hope no one does anything stupid. I hope no one here does anything bad. I mean, I'm a foreigner and I'm accused of crimes here in Romania, but luckily, the Romanians see me as one of their own because I've been here a very long time, and luckily the Romanians know that certain people within certain authorities are happy to set you up and steal all your money if you're an influential person. So I'm seen as more Romanian than ever now. You know, the Romanians used to say to me, oh, don't drive cars that are too expensive and don't show off too much. You know, here there are some people who could attack you and take your stuff and make problems for you. I was like, bro, I'm not Romanian. It's not going to happen to me. I'm fine. And now that they've attacked me in this way, I feel more Romanian than ever. So, yeah, respect the laws of the country that you're moving to. Do we have any more good questions? Thank you for the phrase close but no cigar and where it originated from. I already knew that because I know almost everything. We'll rest in peace, Shaggy. I feel morally obligated to donate because of my $2.4 million win inside of the real world. I appreciate you reposting my win. The refined G on X. Yeah, I actually had the professors and the team dig into you a little bit and make sure that your $2.5 million merger acquisition deal that you did from knowledge learned inside the real world was legit. And it was legit, and I then reposted it. So it's absolutely awesome that a young man like yourself can, you know, learn the business skills we teach inside the real world and end up as a multi-millionaire at such a young age. And credit to you. Join the real world. There's a link below. I think it's absolutely awesome. Every time I hear these success stories, it makes me just want to keep talking and keep going. I mean, obviously, we've been attacked in lots of ways. You know, they've had journalists join and leave and say, I was a member and I found it this way. On my X account, there's page after page after page of wins from people inside the real world. Just pages of wins. People who've made millions, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or just thousands. And they can't stop that. They cannot stop the real, genuine members of the real world from making money and from winning. And there's big things happening with the real world. It is the future. It's going to continue to grow and expand. And no matter what anybody does, I don't think it could possibly be stopped. So, good luck. University.com, you know where to find us. Hi, Tristen. What do you think about how Saddam Hussein ran Iraq? See, I like questions like this. I really like questions like this. I find them incredibly interesting. I'll tell you how Saddam Hussein ran Iraq. Americans were very easy to psy up. They're not easy to psy up anymore. I feel like America's waking up. But they were very easy to psy up. He had brown skin, he had a thick mustache, he was a Muslim, you say he's a terrorist and he's a bad guy and he's got weapons of mass destruction. Sure, let's send our young men to go and die in Iraq and kill 1 million innocent Iraqis. Yeah, sure, absolutely. See, that was the American mindset in the late 2000s. Sorry, in the early 2000s. What's happened now, as I said, free speech, knowledge, information, Americans have become a lot more worldly, a lot more switched on. People like Muammar Gaddafi, who was killed recently, Americans now understand that there was no reason for him to be killed and his country to be destabilized. And I'll talk briefly about Saddam Hussein and what I think about him. Did Saddam Hussein do some evil shit? Yes. That's the answer. Yes, he did do some evil shit. Did Saddam Hussein lock up all of his political opponents and keep them in prison indefinitely for no reason? Without trial or charge? Yes, he did. But let me tell you something else about Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was Iraqi to his core. You cut him, he bled Iraq. His bones were Iraq. He knew his country. I don't know Iraq. Americans don't know Iraq. And none of us know how to govern Iraq. Proven by the fact that America have had a hand in Iraq's politics ever since the invasion, and Iraq has turned to shit. I feel like Saddam Hussein knew his own country. So just as a very quick example, yes, he kept a bunch of political prisoners. He kept a bunch of people who he said were dangerous. And he said, these people against the regime, they're crazy. I need to lock them up. Listen, America, I know you don't understand. You don't have people like this here. These people are insane and I've locked them up because they're dangerous. America's like, well, there's no trial. You just locked them up. You shouldn't do that, as if America doesn't do that. Yeah, Julian Assange once again. Well, they go to Saddam Hussein anyway. And they released all these innocent people who were not found guilty. All those people were ISIS. And they formed ISIS. I don't even like calling it ISIS. People of ISIS to be barbarians. And when they were released from Saddam Hussein's prisons, they started chopping people's heads off and burning people at the stake. So maybe, just maybe, Saddam Hussein, who was born in Iraq, lived in Iraq, ruled Iraq, knew everything about Iraq, knew how to run Iraq better than a bunch of white Americans who don't know shit about Iraq, who couldn't point to Iraq on a fucking map. Yeah, I believe Saddam Hussein should have been left in power. I believe Hosni Mubarak should have been left in power in Egypt. I believe that Muammar Gaddafi should have been left in power in Libya. I believe that these people should have been left to run their own country. Because they understand their country better than people in the West. The West can't comprehend the mind of the Taliban Afghans. They can't comprehend the mind of the Iraqi man. The ISIS. They can't. And it just didn't work out. Every time America nothing has gone better. Ever. Sure, under Saddam Hussein you had. But do you know how many car bombings you had during his entire presidency? 0. Not one. Would I trade Saddam Hussein back in power to bring back to life the 1 million people injured and killed in this unjust invasion, in this unjust war? Yes. Yes, I would. And I guess I'll use my last couple minutes to give a shout out to George Galloway, because my first ever notion of knowing who George Galloway was, I was maybe 16 years of age, and he was speaking against the war in Iraq. Him and some very old members of parliament in England who were alive during World War II were making very good points. The British used to say, oh, London can take it. Bombing us strengthens our resolve. And there were men in the UK Parliament House who were old enough to remember that rhetoric from World War II and to say, well, does bombing not strengthen their resolve? Why are they different to us? Do they not love their children and their country too? And George Galloway spoke against this. Now, me and George Galloway will disagree on loads of shit. Immigration, for one. Yeah, I think me and George Galloway would have a lot of disagreements. However, I'm glad he's there in the Houses of Parliament. I'm glad he is there because what he has done is he has upset the establishment, the established order that has taken the reins in the UK and disguises itself as different political parties, Labour and Conservative, when they're all ideologically the same, who take money from the same people. George Galloway is a maverick in there to upset the established order. So adding a little bit of chaos can't be a bad thing. Thank God for democracy. And God bless George Galloway. Godspeed, sir. And I wish you the very best in your career in British politics. Now, what I'm going to do is I've heard Nigel and Alex are streaming in my house when I'm supposed to do a cigar night. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to join their stream. If you're watching me, a few more questions of yours I am going to answer. But first and foremost, a button is going to come up. I want you to click that button that says join and join the other stream. Let me just check that it's all working correctly. A button should appear telling you to join another stream. I'm going to move over there, and you can listen to me finish my cigar and continue talking on there.
The raid. The raid has been initiated. Click. Raid has been initiated.
In MHA, quirks have always been the most important source of